And we are very excited to have actually Adrian, who, I mean, this is I think the latest book on gamification, and it has got very good language to, how we can improve our design for human centric actually. And I'm very proud of that Adrian with us. And this is a great book, you can buy from Amazon.com. And actually, one of the latest books about gamification you have been played, how corporation, government, and schools use games to control us all. And I watched Adrian in Gamification Europe in 2019, I think. It was a great presentation too. He's the founder of Zombies Run. And he's actually very complain about the points, badges, and leaderboard level of design, gamification design. And I'm very excited to have this event and give it the fourth presentation to him. Thanks, Adrian, for your time, and give us some influence. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. So I'm just going to go and share my screen. Can you hear this? See this okay? Is that showing up? Yep, yeah. Brilliant. Well, thank you for the introduction. I want to talk about how to do gamification well. I don't have any frameworks or anything like that to talk about, but I just want to talk about how important it is to be specific when you're designing gamification. And it's so easy whenever we're designing anything to sort of try and generalize. And, as was mentioned in the introduction, I wrote this book called You've Been Played, which is a kind of critique of gamification. And it talks a lot about how gamification is done badly. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't think it's that interesting at the moment. What I want to talk about, because you're all interested in gamification, I want to talk about how gamification can be done well, because it can be done well, although most of it isn't, I think. I don't consider myself to be part of the gamification industry, even though that's essentially what I've been working on for the last 15 years with companies like the BBC and British Museum and Microsoft in my own company's games. I think what I try to do is I just try and make fun games, basically. And if the games help you do things that you want to do, but you're having trouble doing, like exercising or learning a language or things like that, that's ideal, but they have to be fun. Otherwise, they're not a game. They're just, they're just a chore. They're not really interesting. And so my company is best known for a game called Zombies Run. And it is a game that turns running into an interactive adventure where basically you put your headphones in at the start of a run and you press start and it tracks your run, a bit like, a running app. And as you run, you're in a post-apocalyptic zombie world, and you have to run to collect supplies and to run away from zombies and to rescue survivors. And this, this is gamification. I mean, it is using game design for a non-game purpose, but it's also just a fun game. And I want to talk about some of the decisions that went into making it and how it's different, because Zombies Run has 10 million players. It's a pretty profitable game. It's been really successful. We didn't receive any outside funding. If you can make a good game, people will pay for it. That's a great thing about video games. People are really willing to pay money for these things. But we aren't the first people to make running games, anything like that. So I want to talk about, specificity. Firstly, our goal was to make running more fun. It wasn't to make the most money, although that's nice. It wasn't to get people to use the app as much as possible, because that might mean that people hurt themselves. We don't actually want people to be running all the time. Otherwise, they might injure themselves. And so the reason why our goal was to make running more fun is because I was starting to run at that point, and I found it really boring and painful. So I wanted it to be kind of more interesting. Now, there are a lot of apps out there that use gamification. This is Strava, and it uses a lot of things that you'll have seen before. It's got leaderboards, it's got badges, it's got things like that. And I would say that I think that is motivating for some people. I think some people are motivated by beating their friends and by, collecting things. That is not, completely, it's not something that doesn't work. At the same time, I think it doesn't work for everyone. You know, I think if you're someone who is having trouble running and who is like the slowest of all their friends, they're always going to be at the bottom of that leaderboard, right? And so the leaderboard is not going to be motivating for them to move. And some people just don't find badges interesting. The other thing is that Strava is kind of interesting because its model works on almost any different kind of exercise. It doesn't really matter whether it's running. It has the same kind of things for cycling or running or walking. And I think that means it's not very specific to running. Here's Peloton. Peloton also, has a game design, has gamification components centered around leaderboards. And some people really like that, and it doesn't work for a lot of other people. So I'd say that's kind of not really specific enough to what they're doing. This is kind of really unspecific, just using badges, that I got from wiping. It's kind of interesting, but, you could use this for anything at all. This is where it gets a bit more interesting. This is a game called Nike Grid from 2010. And this was a marketing campaign done by Nike in London. And they split thousands of runners around London into 4 different groups, from East London, North London, South and West. And they had to run across different areas as much as possible to gain points for their team. And that's kind of cool. I think, however, that most of the people playing this game were already actually really into running. I don't think it was really turning people from not being runners into runners. And the reason why I kind of know that is because when you are physically outside running from place to place in this game, it's not really any different than if you weren't playing the game. The only difference is when you go home and you look at your computer and you look at the screen. But when you're actually running, it's still the same kind of boring run, right? It's not transforming the experience. This game could work just as well whether you're in a bicycle or whether you're walking or things like that. So it doesn't really, to me, it's kind of not really exciting enough. And there's another game out there, a territory capture game called Turf, I think, Turfly, that came out a little bit after Zombies Run. And this is kind of interesting. This is a game where it would track where you run or walk in the real world, and you were going to capture these different parts of the world. So that's cool. It was kind of popular for a while, but then eventually people stopped playing it, and they shut it down. And the reason is that it just wasn't that fun, basically. It was kind of interesting to kind of see your points go up and to capture territory. But at the end of the day, you were doing the same thing again and again. And it was possible for someone to beat you just by walking more every day, let alone cheating. So again, if you were running, it just, it didn't really make the act of running more interesting. There's another game actually called Cash and Seek, which is very early, as came out before Zombies Run. It's a Japanese game, and basically, South Korean game, and basically, it's kind of quite interesting. People could leave treasures in the real world, using kind of augmented reality, and you could run over them to go and pick them up. And that's pretty cool. That is like something to do with running. The problem with this game was that when you would always have to be looking at your phone to figure out where the treasure was, right? So it's a bit like Pokemon Go. You're always looking at the map to kind of figure out, do I turn left? Do I turn right? Do I go down this road to sort of pick up the treasure? And the thing is, if you've ever actually gone running, you don't want to be looking at your phone when you're running, right? It's dangerous. That's the last thing you want to be doing. If you go and watch people at a park when they're running, they've got their headphones in because they're listening to podcasts or music, but they're not actually looking at their phone. They don't go and go and check their phone every 5 minutes. So the control was running faster or slower, depending on whether a zombie is chasing you. Just a game kind of unfolds automatically. And there are a lot of games like this, progress games, basically. The other thing that we wanted to do is make sure that every run kind of felt new, because it's boring if the gameplay is the same every single time. And so we put in a story. And so as you're running, you have a story. And now we have 600 episodes of stories. And that's why we have people who've been playing for 10 years. So, the final thing is that we wanted it to feel like we were really transforming the experience. So it wasn't that you'd be kind of go out for a run and you come home and you look at your phone and then it would say you collected these supplies and now you can do something in the game. Instead, we wanted it to be when you're running, you are immediately in the game. It's a completely different experience running second to second, minute to minute, playing Zombies Run than it is playing any other game, playing Turfly or whatever. So I think, if you want to do something that is really successful, that gets people playing, that gets people paying you money, and gets 10 million people downloading your app and playing, then you need to be really specific to the activity that you're trying to gamify. Whether that's learning, whether that's something else, you need to really understand it. It can't just be something that you're kind of slightly interested in. This only worked because I had spent years trying to run and trying to make that more interesting for myself. So there are no shortcuts here. You just need to find something that you're really into and really sort of get it exciting. So that is what I've been focused on for the last 10 years. That's, I talk a bit about in the book. There's a whole chapter about this if you're kind of interested about how to do it well. And I would say that if you do it well, it's really rewarding. One of the things that is most exciting about making a running game and a fitness game is that we get emails and messages and tweets every single day from people saying that we've transformed their lives. We've helped them recover from cancer. We've helped them lose weight. We've helped them gain energy. It's so great. That is one of the best things about doing gamification, is when you can help people do the things that they want to do, but they find it difficult to do. And you can only do that by doing it well, rather than just making, a bit of money. So, this is one testimonial we had, which I love. Excluding my wife and daughter, I think Zombies Run might be the best thing that ever happened to me. So that's my talk. Thank you. If you want to find out more, just go and follow me on Twitter or Mastodon. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. That was a great presentation, and just look from chatbot and everyone think about the story is a very strong pull game mechanic in Zombies Run. And I also take a look for your book, and you have a chapter called The World as a Game. That's a very nice chapter, The World as a Game. And you mention about this market points and some airline points and the balance with them. What is the advice to attendees of Global Gamification Hackathon if they are going to make them is blockchain loyalty? The attendees choose that blockchain-based loyalty. What is the advice the young people attend this event from all over the world if they try to make world is a game and the blockchain? Do you have any advice to them?
My general advice for anyone is to try and make sure that your interests align with, the customer or the user's interests. You want to go make sure that they don't feel that they are fooled, that they were taken advantage of. And so, there are some loyalty programs that work really well where I kind of feel like rewarded for being part of something. And there's some where I've used loyalty programs and I feel like I ended up doing kind of useless stuff. So, that's kind of my main note.
Thank you again, Adrian, the author of You Haven't Played. So everyone can reach this book, great book. One of the latest book spoke about it, and that was a great presentation for everyone to already influence. Thank you, Adrian.